Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well. We are jumping into a new program called Adobe After Effects. This is going to be a simple project, but we're going to take some time to kind of go through this whole program, just sort of general layout and general tools. So I want everyone real quick, as soon as you open it, go over here to Window, click on Workspace. Make sure default is checked, and I'm going to hit reset default to save layout just to make sure we are all looking at the same thing. You'll notice here we've got a couple of things that are similar to Premiere. We've got a timeline down here. We've got sort of a area that we can view our timeline that's going to effectively be our program monitor. We have some places where we have our little project bin where we can import things. If I wanted to double click on this, I can import things. We're not importing anything right now. And then we've got a variety of tools on the side and a toolbar going across the top, including a place where we can change our workspace. We're going to start this off by clicking on this little button that says New Composition. Compositions are effectively the base the base canvas, shall we say, for After Effects projects. Kind of like a sequence is the base canvas for Premiere projects. Let's hit New Composition, and I'm going to name this composition. I'm going to call it we'll call it After Effects After Effects 1, and I'll put my last name on it, right? Okay, so where it says preset HD, it might say this. You can just click on HD 24 frames a second. Make sure, whatever it says up here, that you have, or you click on custom here, make sure it says 1920 by 1080 pixels. Make sure the pixel aspect ratio is set to square pixels, and make sure the frame rate's 24 frames a second. And we're going to change we'll keep the resolution full for now. The start time code should definitely be 0, and the duration should be 22 seconds. Well, no, it should be 10 seconds. Let's do 10 seconds. And then make sure there's 2 zeros, because this is going to be hours, minutes, seconds, and then frames. So notice here the base 24, so the highest this number can be is going to be 24 or 23, and then it's going to roll over to the next second. For the background color, make sure the background color is black. It should say 000 down here. The reason why we want to keep this black is because this background color is effectively empty. We can change the color if we wanted to, say, for instance, do some artwork with like black text or something, and we wanted to, have something visible. But I want us to make sure that we are aware that when we make this, there's nothing here, and so if we were to export it without any color in the background, it doesn't matter what we choose for the background color. It's going to be blank. It's going to appear as black if we don't put anything behind it. So let's press OK. All right, so now that we're here, we have this empty black rectangle that looks like an HD screen, and there's nothing over here. There's this composition over here in our project, and that's basically all we've got right now. Now something will change in just a second here. We're going to add a background to it. Now the background we use in Premiere is what we call a color matte. In this one, we're actually going to add a solid. So if I right-click here, I can say New Solid. So I'm right-clicking down below this little area by the timeline. I'm clicking New, and I'm clicking Solid, and it's just going to give us this choice of how big or small we want it to be. It should sort of like default to the size of your composition. So everything should basically be the same. And then the color is where we can sort of customize this. So if you click inside this little box, it might default to like gray or something like that, or white. You can go up and down like we did with the color matte, find a color that you like, and then press OK. I'm going to maybe make this like, I don't know, sort of a tealish color. It's up to you. And then press OK. All right, so right now we've got this medium solid, and you can do a lot of stuff with it. You can resize it, you can shrink it, you can move it, you can do all manner of things with it, but we don't want to do any of that with this solid. We want this to be treated as the background. So in order for us to avoid doing anything to it, I need everyone to real quick pause, just make sure you zero in on this right here. This little guy right here, this is our little lock icon. If I hit this little square next to the medium solid, I can't select it, I can't move it, and I can't draw on it. Everything I do is going to create something new. So make sure that we have locked our solid. Now notice over here, anytime you make a solid, we actually create a new little folder inside our project bin that holds all of our solids. So that's an interesting little quirk of After Effects. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to add in a rectangle. Now, if I click up here at the top of the screen, you can click and drag and make a rectangle, and you can make a variety of different shapes and rectangles. Notice here that we only have 2 layers, right? If I hit this little arrow, I can collapse this, and it will show me all the different contents of it. But I want you guys to imagine, if you will, this sort of infinite, invisible layer, kind of like we have with our video tracks in Premiere. If I were to roll down with a mouse wheel, you can kind of see that this goes on just in a variety of directions. You effectively can go off into infinity, only sort of like, constrained by the memory of your computer or your processing power. But you can go off forever in this, going one way, or the other direction, and inside the layer is your artwork. So these little rectangles here are distinct entities from the layer itself. They are held within the shape layer, but they are not the shape layer. The shape layer is one thing, and the rectangles that you put inside of it are another. So I just wanted to make sure we're aware of that. So everyone just hit Control-Z a couple of times until we end up with no shapes. And let's draw a square by holding on the Shift key, clicking and dragging, and we'll make our square. Now, we have made our square, and I want us to name our layer, right? So if I click on my layer and I try to right click, I can't really do much here. I can't rename it. If I double click on it, nothing happens, right? I get a little error message. If I click on it once to select it and hit the Enter key, it allows us to rename it. So I'm just going to call this one square. So that's how we rename our layers. So we want to make sure we rename our layers. Now, if I open up my little arrow here, I'll see my contents. I'll see there's a rectangle. We're going to talk more about shapes next week. But right now, I want us to look at where it says transform. These little numbers here should look familiar to you. You've got anchor point, you've got position, you've got scale, rotation, opacity. So this is one of the things that makes After Effects a little easier than Premiere when it comes to animation, because a lot of your things are all in the same place. You don't have to go searching for them, and they're sort of localized to your layers, as opposed to individual things that are on screen. So what we want to do right now is we want to do a little experiment here, right? If I were to go over here to rotation and start spinning it, you notice here that it's spinning around the center of the screen. You probably noticed this when you made this. But when you create your shapes on your shape layer, again, the layer itself is distinct from the shapes. So the anchor point for your shape layer is going to be inside your inside the center of your composition. So the idea here, and again, I'm going to do so, you don't have to do it. If I draw another little shape over here, it doesn't matter what I put on here, everything is going to be rotating around the anchor point, right? So sorry for the bump, say for instance, I want this to be in the center of my artwork, I've got a couple of options. One of the more, I would say, inexact ways is to fiddle around with the anchor point tool in your transform controls, but that is hard to get perfect, so that's not a thing that I really want to do. So I'm going to hit undo until it goes back to normal. Another way of doing it is to go over here to this pan behind tool. If I click on that again, I can also sort of get it lined up. And I want to see if I hold down the control button, I can get it either lined up to the corners or the little areas here. I can just about get it. But again, it's sort of hard to be exact. The easiest way, though, is to go over here to Layer, Transform, and just click Center Anchor Point and Layer Content. And so if you only have one square, it's going to center it in one square. So it'll detect where your center of your layer content is. If you've got multiple squares, it's not going to work. All right, so real quick, before we keep going, I do want to make sure everyone's aware that when you have your shapes made out, what you can do is you can actually create a variety of combinations of fill, which is the color that it is, or stroke, which is, what goes on the outside, obviously, right? And you can adjust how thick the stroke is, and you can choose between either a gradient or a solid color. I'm just going to stick with a solid color, and honestly, I'm going to go ahead and just remove the stroke entirely, just so I can keep this as simple as possible. But you can choose whatever combination of colors you like. I'm just going to stick with white. If, for example, you don't see this because you have a shape and you don't actually see a layer, what's probably happened is, I'm just going to real quick, I'm going to come back to this. Don't do what I'm about to do. I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to unlock this layer here. If you didn't lock the layer like I told you to do, and you have it selected and you try to draw a square, it's going to create this weird mask thing, right? That's the real big reason why we want to make sure we have locked our layers here. Okay, so let's get to animating. We're going to start off by aligning this to the center. If I click on properties, that'll disappear. If I click on align, that'll open up. I want to make sure this little align layers to composition is selected, and I want to make sure my square is selected over here on the menu bar. I also want to go over here to these little diagrams, these little symbols here. If you hover over them, it'll tell you what it's about to do, but you can also kind of read them. You can kind of see that like things are aligned on the left, on the center horizontally, and on the center vertically. So I'm going to click in the center here, so the second and the fifth option here, and it's going to center it into the middle of the canvas. If, for example, you want this to be bigger right here, what you can do is you can click on this little 33% or whatever you got number over here and just click fit. That's going to make it as big as it will be. So I'm going to continue to sort of keep this over here. If you are curious as to what this full means, this full basically is going to reduce the quality of your animation, so it'll use less RAM. So I'm just going to stick with full because it's going to be a pretty simple animation. All right, so let's start. Let's start by going over here to our transform controls. Once again, we can see anchor point, position, scale, rotation, opacity. I'm just going to click on position, scale, rotation, opacity, and I'm going to dismiss all this, right? And I'm going to hide all this. I'm going to ignore anchor point for now. Let's hit U on the keyboard. So if you hit U on the keyboard, it's going to bring up every keyframe that you have created. So I'm going to start off with position. Let's zoom in to our timeline here, and let's go over here. Bring your timeline marker over to 1 second. You can just grab it by the actual playhead over here. And once you have that moved, what you can do is you can create this little new keyframe by clicking the diamonds right here. I'm just going to hold down the mouse button and create these new diamonds. Okay, so going over here to the beginning, I'm going to go to the 0 time marker. I'm going to zoom out some by rolling down with the mouse wheel. And I'm going to click and drag this 960, and I'm going to move this off the screen. And you can see the bounding box. We call this the bounding box. And if you hit the space bar, sorry for the bump, you can see it kind of runs it. Now, we've done this before with Premiere, but it actually is a lot easier with After Effects. If you go to the top of the keyboard, the little F keys, F1, F2, F3, at the very top above the numbers, hit F9 on the keyboard. It's going to create this fun little Bezier sort of smoothing. You can see it, if I just undo what I just did, you can see that it goes the same speed and then stops, as opposed to just sort of smoothly slowing down. We'll get more into what that does later on. You can kind of see it's a little bit smoother. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there for now. I'm going to go forward to 2 seconds. And I'm going to grab my scale, and I'm going to change my, let's grab my rotation. I'm going to change my rotation. I'm going to click right here. If you click and you sort of drag, it'll count up the degrees until you hit 360. Then it'll roll over to 1, like that right there. So if you wanted to, you can just type in, for instance, I'll do what I just did. I can just type in 360, and then it'll rotate it 1 time, right? And so we'll just sort of watch that spin. There you go. So it spins a total of 360 degrees. And if I were to sort of select these right here and hit F9, again, it will speed up and slow down a little bit. It'll be a little smoother. All right, we'll do the same thing with scale. I'm going to click a keyframe for scale. I'm going to go forward to 3 seconds, and I'm going to make another keyframe for scale. And over here in the middle at 212, I'm going to change the scale to 0. So it's going to shrink until it disappears, and it's going to come back. Again, select all of these, hit F9, and it smooths out the animation. Right? All right, lastly, what I'll do is I'm going to click on opacity. I'll do the same thing. At 312, I'll change it to 0. At 4 seconds, I'll change it to 100%. Again, I'm going to smooth this out. It's not going to be a huge difference with opacity, but we'll just watch it. So right there you go. And then lastly, I'll have another keyframe for position. At 4 seconds, I'll hit this little diamond. And at 5 seconds, I'll move it totally off the screen. All right, there we go. Okay, so let's watch this entire thing. Comes in, spins, shrinks, grows, fades out, fades in, and then moves away, right? Those are all of our transform controls. Okay, so let's do this real quick before we export this. I'm going to hit T on the keyboard, or on the little bar up there. I'm going to type, anywhere on the screen, my name. You can choose any font you want, or just keep the default font for now. It's not a big deal. Change it to whatever color you like. You can add a stroke to it. You can add, whatever. But I'll just put it right there on the bottom, and we can kind of see this come in, spin, all that stuff. And then before I export it, I am going to do one last thing. I'm going to go over here to composition, and then composition settings, and I'm going to change this to, instead of 10 seconds, let's change it to 5 seconds. So once again, make sure it says 00500. So hours, minutes, seconds, frames. Okay, so that's going to be it. So the way that we are going to export this, we have 2 options. We can go over here to File, export, add to media encoder, or add to render queue. It's going to create a little window over here. And if you are using the 2025 version, you can actually choose H.264. If you're using the 2024 version or 2021 version, you actually only have the option of doing a QuickTime video. And the way you are going to get around that is by, instead of choosing render, we're going to go over here, we're going to go to export, add to media encoder queue. And that's going to bring up Adobe Media Encoder. If you were having any troubles with this, just obviously let me know. There's a variety of workarounds that you can do with this. Sometimes you could even go to, here we go. And I'll make sure this says medium bitrate, and I'm going to, once again, put this in my downloads folder. Make sure it says After Effects 1 with your name, hit save, hit the green button, and it's going to export this. There's that. Once that's done, the blue text will bring up the folder that this is located in. And let's watch this one last time before we actually turn this in. There we go. All right, so I should see position, I should see scale, I should see opacity, I should see rotation. Those are the 4 transform controls that we're talking about. All right, we're going to get a little more complicated with this next time, but that's good for now. Can't wait to see you guys produce. I'll see you guys in class.